Hey there everyone, it's Alex. Welcome back to another Drummer Artificer Studios. Today we're going to use the jewelry techniques that I showed you in the piercing and riveting demo to make a prop from one of my favorite TV shows, Farscape. So if you guys have never seen Farscape, it was a sci-fi TV show in the early 2000s about a U.S. scientist and astronaut that was testing his own theory in the atmosphere and managed to bounce through a wormhole and finds himself in deep space where he's surrounded by aliens. And it's the series of the adventures with the aliens he meets there. What was very unique about the show, it was actually put on by the Jim Henson Company. So it's all puppets and that style of makeup and special effects. So it was one of the largest budget shows using Muppets as main characters. But the specific prop we're going to be making today is while the main characters were on their ship, which was a living biomechanoid ship named Moya, they used a communicator to be able to talk with each other. And this is what we're going to be making today. It is primarily composed of brass and acrylic. So it's got a top and a bottom plate of brass, and sandwiched in there is a piece of red acrylic and a piece of brass wire mesh. And then on the back I have a magnetic pin back so that you can put it on just about anything without risking damaging it. The overall design for this, I found a very nice drawn image of one online, and I scaled it to fit what I thought was pretty close to the actual piece used. And other than that, this is pretty close to looking what they actually used on the show. So to get started with it, I've already cut out the top brass plate. Since most of the techniques for this you'll have learned in both the piercing and riveting demo, I'm not going to go too in-depth into the details on the techniques for this, and I'm just going to show you the steps I use in doing it. But I've already got that brass plate cut. I've got my back plate, my brass mesh, and my red acrylic. So the next step is going to be to use this plate to go onto both the acrylic and the back plate to drill one of the two holes. I will then use my brass tube to put one of the rivets in place, not actually set it, just get it in to hold it and flare out the end a little bit. That will hold all the pieces together so I can then drill my other hole. After that's all done, I'll set the rivets and then come back in with the saw frame and cut around the exterior border so that it all matches and is the same size. So let's get started with drilling that first hole in all of our material. So like I said, the first step we're going to do is to drill this hole. So what I'm doing is I'm lining up my top plate on the acrylic, marking one of the holes. I'll now center punch that and cut that one out. So that I don't risk shattering or damaging the material any. I'm going to be stepping up through the bits to the sized one I need. Just means that there's less material for the drill bit to cut through, so it's less chance of it biting and spinning it around on me. Okay, there's our first hole. Yep. So now that those two are done, I'm going to take the same brass plate, put it over my other plate, and mark that. I'm doing it this way instead of drilling through both at one time so I can make sure I get the plate centered where it needs to be, and it doesn't shift because I want all the holes to line up. You might also notice that as I'm setting the rivets, I'm hitting it with the side of the hammer and not the surface, because if you can see here, it's denting up the surface of it, and I don't want it to do that on the striking surface. I will eventually be getting a small rubber mallet and a small leather mallet that I will be striking with, but I don't have that yet. So now that all of my pieces are drilled, I've got to clean off the burr on the brass a little bit, and to do that, I'm using a new tool to me. This is a deburring tool that's mainly used for plumbing, but I can put the end in here and just spin it around, and it will shave enough of that burr off of there that it won't affect the riveting any. I only recently learned about that, and it's a pretty cool tool. Now, the brass mesh, obviously, I cannot rivet straight through that, so I've gone through and just have a small square cut out on each end, and that will line up with the holes. Before I put this all together, I'm going to remove the protective material on the inside of the back plate and on both sides of the acrylic. Because I obviously don't need that in there. There we go. So that managed to hold it together nicely. So now I'm able to come back in and mark my second top plate. So all our layers are now in place. Next step is to take our center punch and flare out the ends of those rivets so that it will hold it in place, and we can actually hammer them to set them. Rivets are flared, so they won't move as much. I'm going to now remove the rest of the plastic protective coating, because I don't want to pinch that into the rivet as I set it. Okay, so like I said, I've removed the plastic coating on the front and the back plates. The rivets are in and flared. It is now time to actually set them. I've got my vise with my ball peen anvil set up. I've got my chasing hammer. I'm going to hold it on here and then start to strike on the outer perimeter of this to roll it over. So now that the rivets are done, last step is to use our saw frame and come through and cut around the exterior perimeter of the top plate so that everything is a nice same size. So there you go. It was pretty easy to put this communicator together. About the only thing that would be left to do to it is file and sand it so that it's nice and finished before hitting it with a clear coat to prevent the brass from oxidizing. But it was pretty simple to put together. Some straightforward techniques, nothing too elaborate, and it looks pretty cool when it's done. If you like the look of these and you don't necessarily want to try making one yourself, I do now have an Etsy page up and running where I'm going to be putting some of these communicators up as my first product. There will be other things coming on it in the future, but at the moment, that's all I've got for you. If you have any ideas for some other metal props you could see me build, please leave a comment down below. I'm open to suggestions. I don't necessarily have all the equipment to do some of the stuff, but I can put them in a list of things to do in the future. I would like to take the opportunity to thank my Patreon supporters. I've created a Patreon page for Drummer Artificer Studios, and being a Patreon of this channel helps me get more content out to you. I can't do this on my own, so everything that the Patreons are willing to give for me is a great help to be able to keep content coming. So keep an eye out for the next video. I've got at least one more metal prop lined up that I think you guys will enjoy. So as always, this has been Alex. You've been watching Drummer Artificer Studios. See you next time. So if you're interested in helping to keep these videos coming and making it possible for me to do some more elaborate and intricate work, please feel like you...